Captain Jack here. Today we're looking at 15 of the best Atari homebrew games released in the last year. There has been an absolute metric ton of releases in 2022, so it was kind of hard to pick which ones would be included. Make sure to watch this video at 60 FPS, as some of the games use a graphical cheat to display more objects that doesn't show up well at lower frame rates. With that out of the way, let's get started. Boom is a port of the original Bomberman, and it really does it justice. This uses every trick in the book to make one of the most technically impressive ports we've seen on the Atari so far. Multicolored objects, extra smooth scrolling, it even uses a coprocessor to allow for actual music, meaning the classic Bomberman theme is always present in the background. As far as I can tell, yeah, this is almost a one-for-one port of Bomberman. Even the power-ups hidden in the levels are here, and let me tell you, it feels good to finally get one of these. They are not given out sparingly as they are in the later games, so when you finally get one, it feels great. Top Tom 2 is a port of a browser game called Top Tom, and it's a pretty faithful conversion here. The whole game revolves around jumping over obstacles with the blue car while ground pounding to get the bottom car to jump, meaning you'll have to be extra careful when planning your jumps in order to keep the cars alive. Ironically, the Atari version is actually easier than the original, as it has a health bar instead of being a one-shot kill. There's a nice selection of features here too, from 3 sets of levels, 3 different distances from the end of the track, a power-up game mode that lets you collect bombs and health packs, even a shield mode that lets you trade health for invincibility at a button press. Definitely one of the better 4K homebrews I've seen this year, and there's music too. Refhraktor is a 2-player pinball type game that has you using beams to knock the ball into the other person's goal. It feels at home on the 2600 as it's essentially a new way to play Pong. There are 3 arenas to play in and a different, more defensive beam type if you never want to score goals again. I should mention that this game is a work in progress. A couple of the other games featured here are also unfinished, but this one, you can really feel it here. It's a little glitchy and there's no sound. It plays alright until the ball decides to get a little wild. Silently. It comes in the rare 16K cartridge format, and as far as I know, it's a completely original idea. It's going to be interesting seeing what gets added to this in the future, as it's got a great foundation to stand on. Elevator Agent, which is totally not a port of Elevator Action, is a Champ Games release, and if you know anything about these guys, well, you'll know they're the absolute cream of the crop when it comes to ports. Everything looks and plays great here, even little details like shooting a light down to darken the rooms around you. It's still being worked on at this point, but it already features the signature Champ Game difficulty modes, and apparently the 2-player mode that's usually included in these games will have the second player controlling one of the enemy agents. Cool stuff. A 2-button controller will let you press the second button to jump instead of pressing up, which makes things a little bit less awkward. But overall, yeah, even in this early demo version, you can already tell this is going to be a great time. Spiders and Flies is actually the second game with "and flies" in the title for the 2600. The goal here is to collect points by destroying the baby spiders while keeping the mother spider at bay. An interesting thing here is you can just let the baby spiders fall off the screen. They don't actually kill you. The only way you can die is by running into them, letting them shoot you, or letting the mom spider get all the way down the screen where she'll make a lunge at you and kill you instantly. It creates this kind of loop of trying to safely take out the baby spiders while making sure the mom is still high up the tree. She'll move up if you shoot her 3 times in a row. Eventually the babies will start moving in a zigzag pattern, making things a little bit harder, but that's basically it for this one. Pretty addictive and an excellent example of a 4K game. Switching things up, Dark Keep is a port of a board game called Dark Tower, released by Mattel in the 80s. You can move 1 tile at a time here, and the goal is to collect the 3 keys to unlock the tower in the distance. But you can only find 1 key in each of the 4 regions, with the final region being the one you approach the tower in. It's not going to be easy to get there though. Every time you take a step, you have a chance of getting lost in the woods, getting attacked by a dragon, having a nice camping trip. You know, that third one isn't as scary. The number of soldiers you have is the most important thing here, and they also need food, which slowly drains as you move around. It's a very complex game for the 2600 and allows for up to 2 players, but just 1 player is enough here, as you play against time and the environment. It's a pretty meaty game. There are a lot of screens here, and it takes a pretty long time to finally breach the tower. This is one of those games where you'll have to consult the manual. Pinfinger is probably the simplest, stupidest game on this list, but I just had to put it on here. It's just a digital version of that game you might play in school with a pen trying not to stab I don't even know what it's called. You'll have to press the button once it gets between the fingers with the number at the top telling you where the knife is going next. There's a lot of options here. A 2-player mode, different patterns for the knife to move, different speeds. It's such a silly concept that it really only could work as a 2600 game. But hey, they got it in here at under 4K, so props to them. Next up, we have Lode Runner, which, by the logo showing up at the beginning, appears to have been officially licensed. It's also the second game on this list to feature Bomberman. At least that's what the enemies looked like in the NES version, which is just odd. But Lode Runner for the 2600 appears to be based off the Apple II version, and it's a very competent port of that. It looks and sounds just like it. Between this, Boom, and Elevator Agent, there are a lot of homebrew ports coming out for this system that wouldn't have been possible just a couple years ago. Now, with Lode Runner having 99 levels and all of that, you're gonna want to save the game. And there's two options. The game is save key compatible, but it also flashes a password on screen every time you complete a stage. There's an alternate color mode that appears to imitate the C64 version, complete with different sound effects and jingles. It's a great package, and it's gonna be fun seeing what impossible ports come out next. Here's something you don't see every day. Legendary Spear is a 2K game, matching the size of the launch titles for the Atari. The whole goal here is to charge the other horse riders while staying alive. You'll have to charge them at the exact right time and angle, because if you hit them wrong, you'll lose health. The different colored riders give different amounts of points, depending on how hard they are to kill. You can also use the button to charge up a super long dash that'll kill 2 riders at once if you aim it correctly. The creator of this game said they were inspired by Stampede, and although you can see the similarities, it's interesting how even games as simple as these always morph into something new by the time they're done. Oozy Goo and Slime World is a puzzle adventure game with plenty of traps and obstacles along the way. You'll have to pass through all of these quickly as time works against you. The pressure is on to solve all the puzzles to allow you to proceed. Eventually you'll start collecting upgrades like the ability to shoot enemies or even setting yourself on fire to burn through ice. It's also a decently long game that takes about 25 minutes from start to finish, if you make mistakes sparingly. This developer has made quite a few games for the 2600, and his signature style shines bright here, with defined, cute, single-colored graphics with little to no flicker. Space Pac-Man takes classic Pac-Man and puts a twist on it. There's actually several screens to this game. At first you'll be on the ground, then suddenly you'll be beamed up to a giant space invader ship, and you'll have to smash down to break free. Although this all seems like a cutscene, how efficiently you do this will dictate how much health you have starting out. There's 4 ghosts, but since you're in space, everyone moves freely. You'll have to try to collect pellets as you fly by to slowly regain your health, with the occasional power pellet showing up along the way. Killing all the ghosts with the power pellet gives you a brief bonus stage. Eventually, if you survive long enough, the 4 ghosts combine together into a giant mega ghost that you'll have to kill using several power pellets. This game's manual is great for 2 reasons. The illustrations are top-notch, but the translation is even better. Strategies forget the ground. Yeah, you get that ground. There's a lot of moving parts to this game, but once you figure everything out, it's a great, enjoyable experience. Grizzards is crazy ambitious. I almost didn't believe what it was trying to achieve, but it works. Grizzards is basically Pokemon on the Atari 2600. It's got a whole region to explore and about 20 or so Grizzards, or elemental lizards, to collect, each with their own attacks and stats. It's pretty standard RPG fare when it comes down to it. You'll be farming slimes in order to level up to fight harder enemies. You can use potions, healing moves, or the Poke Center like depot areas to heal your creatures. It's pretty bizarre to think that you can play a complete Pokemon-style RPG on the 2600. The manual is critical for understanding what's going on, with enemy lists, descriptions of moves, and an entire map of the region. Coming in at a massive 64 kilobytes, this is a technical wonder. Even if you don't like RPGs, like me, you still have to try this just to see it all in action. This might be the best 4K game I've seen this year. Raptor has you take on waves of enemies as a military drone, but but you'll have to use your lasers sparingly as it will overheat. You'll also get what's called a boomerang bomb that clears the entire screen if you press the button fast twice in a row. It's a creative way to invent a second button. At first the game starts out pretty simple, but things get more and more difficult and complex as time goes on. Jammer ships are introduced that remove the reticle from the screen, an angry sun laser thing tries to touch you and overheat you, and eventually shields will start appearing, preventing the tanks from getting attacked while under them. At the end of every level, there's a forward command tank that initiates a kind of boss fight with you, and you'll have to kill him before he escapes. Once you do eventually die from the oncoming onslaught of tanks, you'll be assigned an animal rank. There's 6 in all, with the Raptor obviously being the best one. There's a lot of stuff to do here for a game that's 4 kilobytes. And even though the graphics are simple, there's basically no flicker, and the points rising out of the ground is a nice touch. It even has a little rendition of When Johnny Comes Marching Home. Space Chaos is kind of like Turmoil, except there's a guy to rescue. You'll have to smash through tons of space junk just to rescue the astronaut on the other side and get him back to the start. There's a moving bar at the top telling you how much of the level you have left to rescue as many astronauts as possible. It's a pretty quiet game until you turn the auto fire on, then it becomes much more arcadey sounding. It's also a lot easier too. I would probably leave this option on. Last but not least, the newest Champ Games release, Gorf Arcade, brings Gorf to the Atari 2600. The best part of these releases is that they usually pick pretty unknown arcade games. I had never heard of Gorf before making this video. Basically, it's an arcade shooter extravaganza with 5 completely different level types. First, you'll play Astro Battles, which is basically Space Invaders with a shield. Then there's Laser Attack, where 2 clumps of enemies defend lasers. Then there's Galaxians, which is almost an exact copy of Galax. Yeah, I see why this game was never officially ported. Next up, there's Space Warp, where a swirling portal spits out 1 extra hard enemy at a time. Finally, there's Flagship, where you shoot away and get to the core of a massive, angry spaceship. The port even has the voice clips from the arcade version if you have the appropriate module. All in all, this is an amazing game and even better port. It's a very, very, very fun experience, and if you try just one game today from this list, check this one out. You will not be disappointed. Or Raptor, that one's good too.